QuickBooks Pro Desktop 2021 Loan Manager What If Scenario Tool. Let's get into it with Intuit's QuickBooks Pro Desktop 2021. Here we are in our Loan Manager practice file. We currently have the open windows open. You can open the open windows by going to the View dropdown, selecting the open windows list. We're going to now take a look at a tool with the Loan Manager. So the banking dropdown, we're going to go down to the Loan Manager. And we want to think about the what if tool down here, which can run different scenarios, change different factors within the loan to see what the effect would be on the loan. Now, this would be a great tool for the current loans that we have if we were going to refinance them or make some kind of alteration to them. It would also be great if we could have this tool to like project out for loans that aren't currently on the books and you can do that to some degree. You can actually add a new loan and put in all of the data and do kind of a what if scenario with that format as well. So let's see what the process would look like to set up the loan and then have a what if analysis. So we'll actually put one more loan together. To do that, I'm going to close this one out. Let's just take a look at what it looks like in Excel. So I'm not going to go over setting it up, but we're just going to say it's going to be this loan. We're going to say it's like 100,000. We're going to make it similar to what you might see in like a home loan type of situation. So we're going to say it's a 30-year loan. And then if you say 30 times 12, you got 360 months that will be covered. So we got a long loan. If you're going to put it into Excel, you could still do it because you can autofill the Excel table pretty quickly, but that's 7%. The payment's going to come out to the $665.30, and then again, if we were to populate the schedule, we could populate it all the way down using the autofill without too much trouble, but it does take a little bit more work with 360 payments. Let's go ahead and set that up in our QuickBooks file. Note that to put this together in the Loan Manager, I do have to put it on the book, so I'd have to include the loan on the books, even if I'm kind of projecting it. So you could set up another practice file, possibly a file that's just called Loans, maybe, so that you can practice using maybe this tool for different loan scenarios that you would want to use. You can also use, of course, Excel for these types of scenarios as well. So let's take a look at the pros and cons of those. So if you're just analyzing these, you can use Excel to just analyze the tool. But the Loan Manager will be useful if you actually have the loan, because then you can take the payments from the Loan Manager, as we saw in the prior presentations. Let's add the loan. We're going to go to the lists chart of accounts. I'm going to put the loan in the checking account. So I'm going to say then we have as of 01/01/20, this is going to be a deposit. And I'm going to say this is bank. Let's make this 3 just to set up another vendor. I'm going to add the vendor. I'm going to make sure it's set up as a vendor in case I make payments to like a bill. I want to make it on the deposit side, 100,000. And then I'm going to say this is a loan payable. And I'm going to put the last 4 digits of like a number, like the loan number, set up the loan as we've seen in the past. So I'm going to make it a other current liability account, other current liability account. I'm going to put it in a sub account of the loan payable. Want to make it, this is going to be the sub account of the loan payable, and then save that and record that. So we're going to say, okay, let's see it on the balance sheet. Reports drop down, company and financial. Take a look at the balance sheet standard, changing the dates up top and the customized reports from 01/01/20 to 12/31/20, and then okay. So now we have this next loan set up. Now let's put it into the Loan Manager and see if we can mirror our amortization table here, building it in the Loan Manager, and then run what if analysis on it. So we're going to go to the banking dropdown, go to the Loan Manager, and then within the Loan Manager, we're going to set up and add a new loan. And this is going to be for this one we just set up right there, 100,000. That's the one. This is going to be Bank 3, due origination date 01/01/20, amount 100,000, term 360 months, which is 12 times 30, 12 months times the 30 years. So I'm going to say next. And then the due date of the next payment, I'm going to say is 01/31/21 or 20. Is that what I said? 20? Yeah, 20. And then I want the payment amount to be, we're going to say the payment amount is 665.30. So we're going to say this is 665.30 first payment. We're going to have a monthly payment. We're not going to put anything in the escrow, but if that would be applicable, then you can put the escrow information here and then say next. The interest rate we said was 7%, so 7% on the interest rate, monthly compounding, payment out of the checking account, and this will be interest expense. Now notice this doesn't do anything to the chart of accounts. Actually, recording this doesn't do anything to the chart of accounts until we would be to use it to create a form like a bill or a check. And only when we record the bill or check does it affect the financial statements, the balance sheet and income statement. So we're going to say finish. And there we have our general data. Let's go to the second schedule, see if that lines up to what we have. So the first payment is $665.30 for the principal. So first payment $665. That's the amount of the payment. And then the principal is $81.97. So $81.97, then $82.45. Second one is $82.44. That's a rounding difference, we're assuming. $82.93 and $82.93, and so on and so forth. For example, number 7 balance, $99,416.08. Number 7 balance, $99,416.08. So it looks like we're lined up pretty good there. Now, once this is in place, then you can make kind of adjustments. I can say, okay, well, what would happen if we do the what if scenario and pull this thing out and say, well, what if I want the payments to be lower or higher, right? You might say, well, what if I change the payment amount to, say, $300 and say, then I want you to calculate here, then the total payments would be $553,659, and the total interest would be this, and the balloon, then they're calculating it with then a balloon payment because they're going to have to still fit it in to the other terms, which means you're paying less with the same interest rate. So that means that what they did to compensate for that is put a large payment basically at the end of the term. Okay, so what if I was to say I want to change something else? What if I change my payment amount? What if I change my interest rate? So we're at 7%. What if I change it to 8% and then calculate it? The total payments are going to be that $261,160. Total interest will be this, no balloon payments. So if I change this to 8%, just to check that out. So now the total payments, if I add up the total payments, would be the sum of this column, $264,155.25, $264,160. So it's a little bit different. $264,155, $264,160. So it could be a rounding difference there. So we could change the interest, the payment. Then probably what we'd be focusing on here would then be that $733. If I increase the rate to like 12% or something like that, would be $1,028. Let's check that out in our table over here. I can notice you can adjust this in the table too, right? So if I said change this to 12, we're at $1,028.61. So Excel's kind of nice to do this because you get not only the data up top and the payment amount, but you also get the data down below. Excel won't typically do that balloon payment type of calculation that they did. Because that's not a standardized. Well, you could do that, but you wouldn't do it with this layout that we put together because it's not going to calculate the balloon payment in that way. So in any case, so there's going to be the interest rate, and then if I change what we can do, what if we have a totally new loan? How much would I pay with a new loan? So I could say, okay, if I have a new loan which was $50,000, the origination date 01/01/20, term we're going to say is 65-year loan, monthly payments. Payment amount we're going to say is $1,000. Let's say interest rate is going to be the 5%, and the next payment is going to be on 01/31/20. And let's calculate that. So, I could basically do a calculation kind of format with a new loan. This is a nice setup, and it can work well. But again, a lot of this, if you have the information, it's nice to do in Excel. Like if you have that information, you're looking at the payment amount, you could use this formula to calculate the payment amount, and then you can actually map it out in Excel to actually look at what the payments will look like and give you a lot more context with it. But this is a nice little tool to do that too. And this is probably the tool, a kind of tool that you will see if you're working with a loan manager when you're financing something. This nice little, quick little calculation type of tool that gives you basically the payment term that you're going to need. So what if I refinance the loan? So if you're going to say, okay, what if I wanted to refinance? The original date is that the terms. If I was to refinance to a terms of let's say we had a 30-year loan. Let's say we change it to a 15-year loan and say I want to make it 15 times 12 or 180 payments, and then the payment amount. So notice they're kind of requiring the payment amount, and oftentimes that's what you're kind of trying to calculate, right? So I mean, if I went over here in Excel, you can basically say that if I wanted to have 180 payments, then it would calculate the amount for me, which would be 1,200. So we'd say 1200 0.17. So 0.17 monthly payments. The interest rate will keep at that 12%. So we'll say 12% on the interest rate. And the next payment, I'm going to say this should be 01. The next payment is going to be on 01/31/20, and then we can calculate that, and so we can get the total payments and the interest for that type of calculation. Evaluate two new loans, so we can compare and contrast two loans and put them on a side-by-side kind of comparison. So we have the what-if analysis. Again, I think the what-if analysis is a useful tool, but I almost think like a lot of that you can do it in Excel. And if you can put this formula in Excel, then you can back into any of these components that you need to using a what-if analysis, a what-if calculation. So if you can get this point in Excel, you can back into the interest rate. You could say things like, well, what if I want my payment to be $700? What would be, or what if I want my payment to be, I'm going to say what if I increase my payment to 2,000? What would the interest rate be, right? What would this rate be? Well, I can fix that. I can say, let's highlight that rate and then go use my what if analysis. I'm not going to change this formula. I'm just going to go, okay, let's go to the data tab, and then what if scenario goal seek. And I want to change this cell to be 2,000, and then by altering this cell, all right, and then I can say just plug that to whatever it needs to be, and then it'll bring it up to the 23%. So that means if I was paying 2,000 at 180 payments, then I would be paying actually 23% because I'd be paying more over that time period. Right. What if this was lowered down to like, 500, and I did a what if analysis? I could say data, what if goal seek, and I want you to set this cell to be the value of 500 by changing once again the rate, and then I'd say how low would the interest rate have to be for that to be the case? Really low. Not gonna happen. It looks like. What if I want just like 700, and I go, okay, data, what if, goal seek, and then I can say set this cell to be 700 by changing the interest rate. What would the interest rate have to be for that to be the case? 3%, right? And you can do the same for the number of periods and change the number of periods and figure, as the unknown, what would be the number of periods, and you can do the same for the loan amount up top. Like if you had a 3%, if you wanted to pay $700 at 3%, and I want to make the loan to be the unknown factor, I could say, okay, I want to pay $700. How much could I get then if this is the unknown, holding everything else constant? And let's say the payment that I want to make now is going to be the payment is $850. So if I'm paying $850, these three constant, what's the loan going to be? I'm using this formula to kind of back into the loan with a goal seek. So then I'd say, all right, data goal seek. I want you to set this cell to be, I'm sorry, well, one more time. Hold on a second. I want you to set this cell to be 850 by changing this cell. And then I can say, okay. And then all conditions met, I can get a loan of 121,429. So I think this is actually a useful tool. And if you can plug that information, and you can do other formulas in that. I'm doing all that based on this formula, this one formula, and then goal seeking, algebraically backing into, not really algebraically using, it's using algebra, but it's using a try and error method to back into any of the unknowns. And then if you can break out the amortization table, it gives you a much bigger visual of what's going on if you have the amortization table kind of in front of you. So the what if scenario works pretty good, especially if you have something that's already there in QuickBooks. But if you really want to break down the loan analysis, I would go to Excel.